Today was meant to be a Q&A, but I have received an incredibly important question that I'm going to take all 8 minutes to answer today. And this one. I love some old models. My favorites are probably the 4th Ed Chaos Obliterators. Well, for some reference, these ones, right? They're very, very cool models. But besides nostalgia values, can someone explain to me the appeal of metal models? I always found them hard to kit bash, fragile, expensive, and usually mono poses. Well, let me tell you, you're bloody right. You are so, so right. But there's more to it. There's more than nostalgia, why they are so magic. But first, let's address the nostalgia in the room, because it's unavoidable. This is Techless. This is maybe the very first metal model I ever bought for myself. I think I bought it when I was about 12, maybe painted it when I was about that age too. I don't know, I repainted my models lots and lots of times. And there's something about opening up Techless the day I got it that I can never ever get back. And ever since then, I've been chasing that feeling of wanting to open a blister pack for the very first time, feeling the weight of the metal, how special it was compared to all the other miniatures that I had owned, which were all previously plastic, except for a couple of models that my brother had, which were metal. And when I held those, they felt equally as special, but mainly because I think they were his. Kind of felt like a privilege for those. But this was my very first model, and that's what made it special. Now, you are so right about there being very, very little benefit for the consumer why metal models are good, but they're not necessarily for the consumer. I mean, all models are for the consumer, but the choice of metal isn't necessarily for you. This is a plastic sprue. And for a company to make a plastic sprue, it's an incredible investment. It's very expensive to make plastic, so they have to be really confident that it's going to sell well enough, and it's also going to be used for a long time in order to justify that upfront cost. And honestly, I love plastic models far more than metal because I love cutting them up, I love converting them, and all that sort of stuff. But there's a real barrier to entry that isn't accessible for the common person like me. So plastic models were kind of reserved for lots and lots and lots of uses. And for everything else, there was metal, which was usually reserved for heroes and elite choices and stuff, which makes metal models feel inherently special for that nostalgic reason. You don't need as many Techlesses in your army as you do spearmen or archers. So Techless is metal. Now, if you're an indie company, you have a choice of producing your models, because you can't afford to make your own plastic kits. You have a choice of making your models out of metal, like this one. This is an Avatar of War model, which was quite a bougie range back in the day. Or you can make a model out of resin, hand-cast resin, and there's generally drawbacks and limitations for both of them. You can capture more detail and get more undercuts with resin. If you're doing a smaller run of models, it's generally better to do resin casts as opposed to fronting the upfront costs of getting a model made with vulcanized rubber and spun. The thing with making resin models is you have to be constantly remaking the mold all the time. And the models that I get done with Curtis, I think a mold is maybe reused like 30 times before it's unusable because it starts to tear, it starts to break down, and the models aren't very good. With metal models, it's like 500 to 1,000 spins, and also you can cram a lot of models in there, and also the turnaround time between each casting is very, very quick compared to resin. But also with resin, it's much better for doing bigger models. It's much more cost effective than using big chunks of metal as well. So that's why Forge World stuff has been resin stuff in the past as opposed to big metal chunks. It's not really for the consumer why we make these choices. It's more so what the company can afford to produce, or how many they expect to sell, or what kind of money that they can front up front. So if you want to make a metal model, you take your model and two very hard pieces of rubber and you put them under pressure and heat. And when you pull them apart after enough time, that model leaves an impression on those two pieces of rubber. And inside that void, you can pour hot metal that's spinning around very, 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 very fast. The limitation of that rubber is it's very, very hard, which is why metal models look the way that they do. Really bloody flat. Really bloody flat. Really, really bloody flat. This one isn't flat. because it's actually two pieces. The staff is the second piece, which takes up more room in the mold, which costs more. This Avatar of War model looks very dynamic. It has a lot of layers to it, but it's actually just lots and lots of pieces glued together. But even in this form, you can still tell that it's a metal model, even when you paint it, because each of these shapes is very flat. They're just stacked on top of each other. And that's what makes old metal models special, because they were trying to overcome limitations and trying to make something beautiful at the same time. And that took craftsmanship, that took expertise, that took compromise, and it took sometimes going to your boss and being like, I really want to do this thing, it's going to cost us more, can we do it? And those exceptional times when they had more budget to make more cool models, it's a special thing. So kind of understand conceptually why metal models and resin models looked the way that they did, but why do this in 2025 when we have resin printing? This table is so squeaky. I need another screw in it. Metal models were once a super utilitarian thing. That's how indie sculptors could make stuff, put power in their own hands because they couldn't make plastic kits. But in 2025, in the world of the STL with 3D printing, digital sales, metal models isn't so important for the indie. But for me, when I see an indie model, an indie manufacturer, a company, a sculptor with metal models, that tells me that that person has backed themselves. That person is willing to take a risk. That person is confident in themselves enough to put themselves out there and say, hey, this is a really difficult thing to do. I have a vision. I'm going to make it real. I'm going to go through many hands and expertise and put money and front myself to make something tangible that I think other people might like. And if nobody likes it, I like this thing more than anything else, and it has to be real even if it's not for anyone else. And for me, I think that's incredibly special. And I think even though I love digital, I think digital for me means that I can connect across the world as a country boy. That's something I wanted more than anything growing up. That's why I fell in love with Warhammer on YouTube as a kid, because I didn't have that connection to people like so many other people did. But now as an adult, I find it's my responsibility to back myself and show that I really care about my weird vision. If I want to make something like this, I've got to show that this is me. And this is what I can do, and it's not something I'm going to throw away. I'm proud of me. And that's what I read into other people's stuff. Like Tanner Simpson. I converted this one a little bit, but Tanner's out here making pop people, and that's so bloody cool. That's someone that sees a vision, sees their own personality and is proud of it and has to put themselves out there, not because they think it's going to be the most popular thing in the world, but because they have no other choice but to express themselves and be true to what they want to make. Metal models in 2025 are really bloody special. There's also this transformative aspect to me that when you take something digital and you try to turn it into a physical thing. It doesn't matter what medium it is. You start introducing the human hand, other voices, other people, and that makes things inherently more human too. More than just an STL file, a digital file, something you can print. By introducing all these flaws, all these ideas, all these compromises along the way, you create something that can only be made by a human, and I think that's very special too.